Hey everybody! Today I wanted to share with y'all some of what I've been reading and listening to, basically the content I've been consuming around intuitive eating and health at every size. And a lot of the ideas and things that I talk about come from these resources, and I thought, what better than to share them? I want to create like a collection of links over on my blog, so I'm going to go ahead and start that, and I will link that below. So just know, as I'm reading and discovering more, I will add those links to the list that I'm starting. So grab yourself some water or some coffee, iced coffee for me because it's like 98 degrees in Alabama today. But let's get started. I would love to share these resources with you, and I hope that their work will be as life-changing for you as it has been for me. I will try to pop in some graphics right about here, just so that you guys will have some sort of a visual to associate with their work. The first one I want to mention is Dr. Linda Bacon, and she wrote a book called Health at Every Size. And honestly, when I hear that phrase, I just had in the past a total misconception of what that meant. I guess, I'm just speaking brutally honestly. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone. I honestly thought that health at every size was like a body acceptance movement that heavy people use to feel better about themselves, basically. And while that might be partly true, there is so much more to it than that. And Dr. Linda Bacon's book talks about it beautifully. If you follow me on Snapchat, you heard me talking about this very book on the way to my doctor's appointment. She explains things so well. She comes from an academic background, and so it's very fact-based, which I love. She conducted an actual study where she divided women into two groups. She put one group with like a great weight loss guru, gave them full access to everything they would need to lose weight, and she took the other half of the study and she taught them health at every size, basically. And she taught them body acceptance. She taught them how to make healthy choices without an emphasis on weight. She worked a lot on their mindset, and the results are fascinating to me because they kind of debunk everything that we have been taught about health and weight. And it's really changing the way that I think about things. And at this point, yes, I'm kind of coming around to health at every size, but I'm still very careful. Like, I'm not one to jump into a set of beliefs without really examining them. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. Anyway, she just speaks so beautifully to the reader. She presents her information in a very professional way, but she's also so compassionate, and she's so she explains things very well to the layperson without talking down to you. You know what I mean? So I just appreciate her tone. I appreciate the work that she's done, and I think this book might be one of the most important books around weight and health that I have ever read. I really wish I could give it to every physician, every nutritionist, to every woman, and just say, read this and tell me what you think. So yes, anyway, Dr. Linda Bacon, Health at Every Size. Get it, read it, and let me know what you think. Number 2 is Sandra Amant. I think I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She did a TED Talk, which I will link below. And she is a former dieter as well. And she came around to intuitive eating, and she's also a neuroscientist, and so again comes at all of this from a very fact, reality-based approach, an academic approach as well. So I loved her TED Talk. She also wrote one of the articles that was circulating around about The Biggest Loser, and you know how they, if you guys aren't familiar, an article went around about a month or two ago talking about the biggest losers and why and how so many of them gained all the weight back and how now they have stunted metabolisms. Dr. Linda Bacon talks about this in her book, which was written years before the study came out about the Biggest Loser contestants. Sandra Amant also talks about a lot of the same stuff, and she's also a former dieter, so she comes at it from that perspective as well. I think her TED Talk is great, and it's actually kind of encouraging, so I will link that below. Number 3, I love Christie Harrison and the Food Psych podcast. I basically, as I started on this journey, I was like, I love podcasts. And so I went into my podcast app, typed in intuitive eating, and she was the first podcast that popped up. The first episode that I listened to was her interview with Isabel Fox and Duke, who's another one that is on my list. I just love Christie. I love her work. I love her whole demeanor. She's so compassionate. She herself has recovered from an eating disorder, so she knows very intimately the disordered thoughts that drive a lot of the dieting behaviors. And her podcast, she interviews a lot of different people, and I just really appreciate her and her work. I think y'all would enjoy her podcast, so I will link her website and her podcast below. Well, I might as well go ahead and mention Isabel Fox and Duke. Once I heard that interview on Food Psych when she was on Christie Harrison's podcast, I was obsessed with her, and I went around Googling to find other talks and podcasts that she had done, and basically I think she is bang on with her theory, with the things that she teaches. She also is recovered from an eating disorder. Hers actually got pretty extreme and led into a cocaine addiction, and she has now broken free from all that. She's an intuitive eater and a health coach, and now she helps other women as well. Next is Katie Dalebout. I just love her. She has a podcast called The Wellness Wonderland, and I think she's about to change the name of it. As of the date of this recording, that is the name of her podcast, but I listened to a recent one, and I think she's about to change the name to Let It Out with Katie Dalebout. That kind of ties in to the title of her book. She just wrote a book called Let It Out, A Journey Through Journaling, I think. I haven't read it, but I bet it's great. She's a good bit younger than me, and it's funny that she's called The Wellness Wonderland, because like I can sense that that feeling of awe and wonder in her, and I think that's so cool. As we get older, we get a little bit more jaded, a little bit more cynical, and so I just love her fresh attitude, and she's just brutally honest. Next, I want to mention Kelsey Miller. She writes a column for Refinery 29 called The Anti-Diet Project, and I love her work. She is so good. All of these girls, I just want to like sit down and have lunch with all of them. I just think they're awesome. I can relate to so much of what she says. She, like me, is a former Weight Watcher. She had a really big, what she calls landmark weight loss, and gained it all back. And so she talks about that. She is intuitive eating now. She talks a lot about health at every size. Just a really, really great voice in this space, and she does a lot of important work. She has a new book out called Big Girl. I would love to read it. I have not read it yet, but I'm sure it's awesome. Caroline Dooner is another one that I'm just starting to get to know. I've heard her on some of the other podcasts that I've mentioned. I have heard Caroline interviewed, and she is an actress, which if you think you got body issues in that space and in that profession, there is so much pressure to look a certain way. So Caroline also has a background in musical theater, and she has a stand-up act now where she writes like comical songs. She wrote one about she was obsessed with French people. You remember that book, French Women Don't Get Fat, or something like that? She, in the height of her eating disorder, she was obsessed with French women and being more French so that she could be thin, and she wrote a hilarious song about it. And I just love her. I love her spirit, and I just can't wait to get into reading more of her work. The last content creator I want to mention really is not talking about weight loss, but interesting concepts that kind of tie into all of this stuff. Her name is Dr. Elissa Rankine, and she is an MD, and I just love her work. And she has something called the Whole Health Cairn, and I'm gonna flash up a graphic and let you guys see it. She, based on her years of practicing medicine, she would get frustrated with patients that would come in, and would have all these physical symptoms, and she said it was like a game of whack-a-mole where you'd fix one thing and something else would pop up. Through the years of her work and her research, she's really gotten into a lot of the mental health and the emotional health, and her work is about creating a life that you love and being true to your inner essence, and she calls it your inner pilot light. And I just love that so much. The funny thing about intuitive eating is it kind of puts you back into touch with your intuition. Actually, there was an episode on Christie Harrison's podcast called Intuitive Eating, Intuitive Everything. And that's so true. Once you start kind of tapping into that intuition, it kind of leads you down this path of, well, what else is my intuition trying to tell me? That beautifully aligns with Dr. Elissa Rankine's work, and I can't wait to read more of her stuff. She has a website, and I will link her below as well. She also did an amazing TED Talk, actually a couple of them. It seems like we've kind of glorified our physical health a little bit. Not that it's not important, because it is, but our mental health affects it so much more, and our spiritual health. There's just so much more to it than just like the physical reality. Are you happy in your relationships? Are you doing work that you love in your career? Do you have autonomy and freedom in your life? There's just a lot of things that play into our general overall well-being, and when any of those things is out of whack, it can cause the body to start breaking down and showing symptoms of distress. And so it's really about treating the whole patient and not just the physical symptoms. It's fascinating. I hope this list is helpful to you. I hope the work of, I guess they're all women, aren't they? I just realized that. I hope the work of all these ladies enriches your life and challenges your thinking and makes your life better, just like it has mine. And I just, if any of you ladies are watching, I just thank you so much for your work, and I hope I get to meet each and every one of you someday. Do you have any content creators that you want to share? Leave me a comment and let me know. I hope y'all are having a great week, and thank you so much for watching, and thank you for all the wonderful comments. I just love interacting with y'all. If you're watching this on my blog, hop on over to YouTube. That seems to be where most of the discussion takes place, and just read through some of the comments. There are some really thoughtful ones in there. So just thank you to all who watch and comment, and I love you all, and I will see you again in my next video.